Salute, 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 ATP. It's your boy Clay More Rain back at you guys with another one. All right, all right, all right. Keyshawn Davis. Guys, Keyshawn Davis been growing into his own really last year, having a hell of a run. Do we need to go through it? Right? Coming off of a shaky 2023, right? At the end of that year, having a win against Nahir Albright, taken away from him after popping dirty for marijuana in Texas after fighting Mr. Albright and had that fight taken away from him, and as well as getting a suspension and losing out on a opportunity to cross over officially from out of the prospect space into the contender space with a fight with Jose Pedraza. Was blessed to have the right people around him when it comes to Terrence Crawford, when it comes to Andre Roar, when it comes to Bomac, when it comes to Shakur Stevenson. Conveniently enough, the people, his mother, obviously, his brothers, the support system he has around him brought him full circle to where he was actually pushing back at the idea of being suspended for something like marijuana, and then really starting to accept accountability, take into consideration the big opportunity in front of him, and realizing that, listen, this is an opportunity to change my whole entire life, right? Change my family's life and the trajectory of everything that's happened when it comes to my bloodline, as well as obviously my brothers and things of that nature. I'm paving the way for something greater than and bigger than myself. I should be able to put down a joint, right? In the spirit of potentially making legacy achievements, right? Life-changing, family, bloodline changing achievements. Came into 2024 with a new attitude, got that fight back with Jose Pedraza, was able to perform at a high level, stop Jose Pedraza, came back and fought Miguel Medueno, an aggressive, forward-stepping Mexican fighter, where he was able to give 12 rounds, one of the fight of the year candidates, in my opinion, last year, and then come full circle to get an opportunity to have a title elimination fight by fighting Gustavo Lemos in his own hometown, headlining the card. Gustavo Lemos coming into the fight X amount of pounds over the actual agreed upon weight limit. And Keyshawn Davis standing tall, not going to let this opportunity walk away from him. Took the fight anyway and was able to dispatch of Gustavo Lemos like a champion should in his hometown inside of 2 rounds, right? 1 or 2 rounds. Got rid of him, made a name for himself, and showed the world that not only was he an exciting fighter, but he sold, packing out arena in his own hometown in the Scope Arena in Norfolk, Virginia, and then earned himself a fight with the then WBO lightweight champion Dennis Berinchyk, right? Came back earlier this year and shut the place out in New York, fought Dennis Berinchyk amidst all kind of distractions, watermelons and bananas, or whatever the combination of fruit that was inside of that basket that was left at his door, basically throwing shots at his race, trying to distract him, show that he could focus in, dial in, and be an Olympic level fighter like Dennis Berinchyk, who had just given Emmanuel Navarrete, an up-and-coming great Mexican fighter who stepped up from 130 pounds to 135 pounds, and Dennis, just handily put on a masterful class against him and became a champion. Keyshawn saw no issues within, and dispatch of him is pretty quickly as well. Now a WBO lightweight champion in the same division as his fraternal brother, I guess you can say, in Shakur Stevenson, who's also holding a belt with the WBC in that division. But there's always been a question, an elephant in the room that needed to be addressed on how Keyshawn Davis and Shakur Stevenson were going to coexist in the same division. Both of them completely dialed into not fighting each other and challenging each other, and ultimately, because of that decision, holding up a whole division in so many ways, right? Because what do we as fans, what do we want to see? What are we here for? We're here for the title fights, the unifications, the undisputed, the best fighting the best, right? This is no secret. This is what we're here for. And here, Keyshawn and Shakur Stevenson say they don't want to fight each other because of this brotherly love that they have for each other. I mean, on one point, you could respect it, right? You don't want to fight your brother, but at the same exact time, you're not blood brothers. And at the same exact time, if it's that serious, why occupy the same division? So this has been up for conversation across the space for a while, especially since Keyshawn Davis has become champion. Now, of course, in that same division is Gervonta Tank Davis. Everybody wants to see Gervonta Tank Davis fight both Keyshawn and Shakur Stevenson. But the question has been, if you listen to Tank fans or just boxing fans in general across the space, said, all right, Tank needs to fight these guys, but why can't these guys be required to fight each other? Listen, from my point of view, because they don't want to, right? I mean, you could ask them to, beg them to, want them to, but if they're not going to, what can we do, right? But ultimately, have things changed a little bit in the past couple of days? Keyshawn Davis now getting ready for his title defense against Edwin De Los Santos, going back to his home state in Norfolk, Virginia, in the Scope Arena to perform in front of his fans to defend his title against Edwin De Los Santos. Edwin De Los Santos coming off of his last fight, which was a very lackluster performance, to say the least, against Shakur Stevenson, fraternal brother to Keyshawn Davis. But at the same time, before that, if you were going to look at a fight to maybe properly judge Edwin De Los Santos, you might want to go back a few years and look at him fight against Raul Venezuela at the time. Raul Venezuela was working his way at 135, trying to get himself into a title shot. Edwin De Los Santos was able to stop Raul Venezuela. And that being said, kind of started to make a name for himself as somebody who looked forward to seeing the Dominican fighter fighting at 135 pounds. Everybody understood how dangerous he was. He was able to face adversity with Raul being sat on his pockets, stepped up, got up off his pockets, and was able to ultimately stop Raul Venezuela. So earned his respect right there. And in a fight against Shakur Stevenson, where rumor has it, or Shakur Stevenson would have you believe, or his team would have you believe, and I'm assuming it's true, had a problem with his hands. I think hindsight shows that, ultimately there was something wrong with his hand, right? As we saw Shakur Stevenson having to go through some surgery and things of that nature. That's another story, right? I digress, and I come back full circle to say that Keyshawn Davis, getting ready for this Edwin De Los Santos fight, is on a media campaign right now, promoting the fight. And of course, any real journalist in the space is not going to waste an opportunity away to have Keyshawn Davis sitting in front of them and not pop up the question, the elephant in the room, which is, what about you and your brother Shakur, right? Now, this was a situation where you can say it's kind of compounded with the fact that now that Shakur Stevenson has kind of like rekindled his friendship with Richardson Hitchens, a fighter that, last year, Keyshawn Davis expressed contempt for, said he didn't like Richardson Hitchens, and that, rumors about things that happen in sparring sessions and things of that nature. It looks like it's built up some animosity between the both of them. But now that Shakur seems to be standing alongside Richardson Hitchens as far as, mutual friends, right? Associates, Keyshawn's kind of been put in sort of a awkward situation, right? Where he's going to maintain and respect his friend and brother, big brother, Shakur Stevenson, but at the same time, not going to hold too many words for Richardson Hitchens. That being said, right, the question comes up, and I guess there's some things going on in Twitter, and Keyshawn Davis communicates to the Twitter space that first he said something along the lines of both those guys, being Shakur and Richardson Hitchens, were being weirdos. You could take that for whatever it's worth, but I think more importantly, said something real important a little bit later and said, when asked about him versus Shakur, referred to anybody can get it if you're not DB3 being his brothers, himself, Keyshawn Davis, and Kelvin Davis. If you're not part of that group, anybody can get it. In other words, he's willing to fight anybody. Well, the boxing space, who's dying to see one of these guys show some loyalty to the boxing space and over each other. Oh, singing. Hearts are singing, right? Yay! Maybe we can all get what we want to see is the best fighting the best. And right now at 135 pounds, the best in the division, two of the best in the division would be Keyshawn Davis, and Shakur Stevenson is one of them. Obviously Gervonta Tank Davis and a couple other fighters in the division. But these two are two of the best in the division. How does this ultimately affect the relationship between Keyshawn Davis and Shakur Stevenson? Can there be a friendly competition between these two guys without throwing out the baby with the bathwater? The baby being their actual friendship, their brotherhood, that they've established with each other, the understanding that they have. Now, if you go back in interviews, you'll see where Shakur Stevenson's been confronted with the question, and he said that's his brother. He could never fight him. You know, his mother and Shakur's mother and Keyshawn's mother know each other, and they build with each other. They're brothers, know his family, you know, family members. This is something deeper than rap. It's damn near deeper than blood. This fight couldn't happen. They couldn't imagine hurting each other. Well, Keyshawn Davis, some fighters are very legacy driven. You know, Terrence Crawford was friends with Sean Porter, maybe not as close as Keyshawn Davis and Shakur Stevenson, but ultimately, when it came down to it, they got it in the ring and seem to be the best of friends to this day. Much respect for each other to this day. Mike Tyson once said, if you have love for your friend, if you have a friend in the game who's in the same division with him, well, the best way you could show love to your friend is by giving him a fight, give him a payday, give him something to help him take care of his family. Would Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis be willing to go ahead, put their friendship to the side for X amount of months to give the boxing space what they want, which is one of the most competitive fights that's available to be made in the 135-pound division? Now, if you guys aren't going to jump in the ring and fight each other in real time, if it's going to be some awkward-looking sparring match, I think a lot of us, I think I could speak for a lot of boxing fans in the space that would say, spare me, right? Spare me of that. But in a competitive fight, stylistically, I would love to see those two guys go at it. Either way, Keyshawn Davis seems to be super focused on showing the whole entire world that he is the best lightweight champion in the world and one of the best boxers in the world, period. Now, Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis seem like there's no way that these guys are going to evade each other. Because even amongst the rumors of Keyshawn Davis challenging the likes of a Teofimo Lopez for his WBO title, being that Keyshawn Davis holds a WBO title at 135, Teofimo holding his title at 140, one could see Keyshawn Davis campaigning to fight a Teofimo Lopez, leveraging that WBO title to make a big fight at 140. But Shakur Stevenson limited on his options at 135, as it seems like pulling nail and teeth to get a fight or a contract or an offer between him and Gervonta Tank Davis going. How many fights are really at 135 pounds for Shakur Stevenson? Naturally, you would think it wouldn't be long before you seen Shakur Stevenson back at 140, which would put the division in the same predicament it is now with Keyshawn Davis and Shakur at 135. If Keyshawn Davis is able to go ahead and get himself a title at 140 pounds, and Shakur Stevenson, who's normally been a legacy-driven fighter, but things may have changed a little bit for Shakur Stevenson as he's focused a lot more on from the legacy to the prize fighting style side of the game, where you've heard him mention the likes of Conor Benn and willing to go fight him at 147 pounds, or even fighting a Teofimo at 140, or other fighters in higher weight class divisions than 135. Although he professes to be a natural 135-pound fighter, he's also professed to be willing to move through the weight class divisions in a reasonable way to fight some of the biggest fights that could be made. What Keyshawn Davis seems to still be legacy driven, and now a Ring Magazine ambassador working with Turki Al-Sheikh really has a financier behind him, a sponsor behind him that could probably put Keyshawn Davis in a lot of great opportunities. But once again, how long can this game continue to be played out between Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis, where they refuse to fight each other, but they also are adamant about staying inside of the same division? It's conflicting, to say the least. And as a boxing fan, a little bit frustrating at times, knowing that these guys not only won't fight each other, but could possibly be holding up divisions and stopping us from seeing great unification fights, and ultimately stopping whatever divisions they both occupy in from ever actually becoming undisputed champions in that division. So it's going to be interesting to watch this unfold. Me personally, I don't want to see anything personal happen between Keyshawn Davis and Shakur Stevenson. And I would hope that the competitive nature of both these guys can separate their brotherhood and recognize what they both came in the game for, and be able to promote, have a competitive fight, and still be able to walk away from that with that same bond that they seem to have built over the years. But only time will tell that. You guys let me know what you think. Is Keyshawn Davis at this point drawing the line in the sand? Is he the one willing to fight Shakur Stevenson, and Shakur Stevenson's the one who's actually not willing to fight anybody? Or are we just misreading the tweet? Did Keyshawn Davis simply put that out in a very general way, not even taking into consideration that his brother, his fraternal brother, Shakur Stevenson, would be grouped into the everybody statement? Let me know what you think in the comment, guys. Once again, thank you guys for tapping in. If you're still here, man, I appreciate you being here. Subscribe to the channel. If you haven't had an opportunity to do it now. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Hit your bell icon next to the subscribe button so you're getting alerts when I'm dropping content like this. It's your boy, Claymore Rain. This is that ATP Combat Media Show. And until the next one, at this point, we out.